last night at about 12:41 this morning, we received a call from neighbors about a vehicle accident that occurred here on West 106th. The caller stated that, it appeared that the victims and the vehicles that were involved had not survived the crash. Our officers responded to the scene to start their investigation. At this time, the preliminary results are that a vehicle was traveling by itself northbound on West 106th. It struck 2 trees and the vehicle was torn apart at the scene. There were 4 occupants in the vehicle, 2 males and 2 females, that were pronounced deceased at the scene. At this time, we are still working to identify the 4 individuals. Preliminarily, it looks like they may be teenagers. The vehicle was reported stolen on February 27th from an address in the 2nd District on Wichita. It had been taken without the keys from the owner, without his permission or knowledge. So at this point, our investigators are still actively investigating this. We are looking at our real-time crime center for any information that might assist with our investigation. We did have the vehicle traveling in different areas throughout the city that it looked like it had just been driving around throughout the evening. So at this point, there's not a lot of information that we do have, but this is an absolute tragedy to have 4 young people killed in this type of tragic accident. So at this point, if there's any questions that you have that I can answer.
Chief, was there any other vehicle involved that may have been chasing this car?
So from what I saw in the footage, there doesn't seem to be any other cars in the area. Like I said, this is a single car crash, and when I was able to review the footage, there were no other cars following behind or in the area.
Any idea how fast this car was traveling?
It was a high rate of speed. Our investigation will still, the accident investigators will still work to determine that. But if you had an opportunity to see the results of the crash, it had to have been going at a really high rate of speed.
Number?
I really don't know that at this time. I don't want to guess at that.
Can you go back to the February 27th on Wichita and the circumstances? Was this at night? Was this during the day?
So the owner had last seen his vehicle in the morning, parked on the street in front of his home, and when he came out later in the day, the vehicle was missing.
Was anything?
There was no glass, there was nothing to indicate how it was taken. He had his keys, so no information on how that vehicle was taken. It was a 2014 Hyundai Sonata was the vehicle that was involved.
Have you been able to get in contact with all 4 families out of all involved yet? I know obviously you haven't identified them, but how long might that take?
Right now, the coroner's office is conducting their investigation. We have not made contacts with any family members because we're still working to identify the 4 individuals of the crash.
Is that because of the severity of these injuries?
It's not necessarily the severity, but there was nothing in the vehicle to identify the occupants. So at this time, the only thing we have are the preliminary results that they appear to be potentially juveniles that were in the car.
What kind of message would you have? This is probably one of the worst stolen car cases that we've had in a while with 4 deaths. A message maybe if they are teenagers to parents and other teenagers.
So when you look at a tragedy like this, the vehicles aren't toys. This is not, it's dangerous. The capabilities they have, and if this is, it appears it could have been a minor overcorrection that caused the accident. If you mix a, inexperienced driver and high rates of speed, and then of course it's, also a stolen vehicle. We don't have much information on the driver of the vehicle. We don't have anything at this time to really know what happened. But vehicles can be absolutely dangerous, and as we see, this has had deadly consequences. That is scary. occupants were ejected from the vehicle, and one was still inside the vehicle,
Inside which part?
towards the driver's area.
Nobody had seatbelts at any time or any indication of wearing seatbelts?
At this time, I don't believe so, but our investigation should be able to determine that.
And police didn't encounter this vehicle earlier in the night, or there was no pursuit of any kind?
No, until the neighbors came out, they heard the accident, and they made the call to 911.
The wind.
Yep, understood.
Enjoying the wind.
The footage that you reviewed, is that all real-time crime?
Part of that is real-time crime. It's also security footage from a resident in the area.
Any indication that drinking was involved, alcohol, drugs?
Not that we're aware of. Of course, the coroner's office will be the final determination of that. Everybody good? All right,
Thank you,
thanks.
Chief.